Welcome to our panel called Youth-Centered Funding, Driving Change in Mental Health. Also, welcome to our online audience. We are so happy that we could all be here together in Cape Town and online to have this important conversation. My name is Loes Loning. I have the pleasure to chair this panel. I work for UNICEF in New York, and I'm also one of the co-chairs of the Child and Youth Working Group of the Global Mental Health Action Network. And with the working group, we have organized this panel, and there's also another panel tomorrow at 11:30 called Youth at the Forefront of Mental Health. So maybe some of the conversations we can start today, we can also take up, because we know there's never enough time for everything. So hope to see you there as well, doing a little bit of promotion for that panel too. So please allow me to introduce our panel members. You can, when I call your name, please have a seat. Yeah, some of us have traveled really far, so we're so happy that we could all be here together. So I want to welcome Sahil Chopra, who works as a portfolio manager with Grand Challenges Canada. He's a public health professional and youth advocate who is determined to reach more young people through the power of prevention and the importance of holistic well-being through the Being Initiative. Please give him a warm applause. And then we have Jose Pfeffer. He's a training officer for Waves of Change based here in South Africa. And he's a young person with lived experience. And he trains young people to become coaches and use the Waves for Change approach, which I'm sure he will tell us more about. And then we have, oh yes. And next we have Viet Trinh. He's a youth advocate and researcher with a focus on LGBTIQ plus mental health in the Asia-Pacific region. He's the health program coordinator at Lighthouse Social Enterprise, a leading civil society-led organization in LGBTQI plus rights and health in Vietnam. Please welcome Viet. And then we have Aline Kossi-Gantner. She's the Chief Development Officer at Fondation Botnar. Aline has been responsible for several health research programs, including co-leading the development of the Being Initiative. She also oversees the Foundation's Community of Practice platform that strives to foster learning within the Foundation's network of partners. Please welcome Aline. So just a little bit about this session. The objectives are really to discuss effective youth leadership in practice, research, and funding, to identify any trends and shifts in how youth engagement and leadership is viewed and is actioned by funders and decision makers, and also to hear about approaches happening in youth advocacy through international funding initiatives currently underway. We have time for questions and discussions, so if you have any of your own projects or approaches to share, any ideas, then we really welcome them. So first we'll have a little bit of a talk with the panel, and then there's time for questions and sharing with the audience. And also, please, if you're online, then you can put any questions or comments in the chat, and we'll get to them as well. Okay, let's start. Okay, so Sahil, let's start with you. How has Grand Challenges Canada successfully championed youth-led initiatives through funding?
Sure. Before I respond to this question, maybe whenever we have panel discussions or post-lunch, so I used to share one evidence with everyone. It's like, whenever we have conferences and meetings like this, the post-lunch sessions are always the least productive session of the day, but we should not make it least productive. So, so attention is all here. So, to respond to your question, so Grand Challenges Canada funds innovations at two levels. First is the proof of concept or seed level, wherein we will test the innovation itself. And then we have another level, which is called transition to scale, wherein we will test the scale and sustainability of that particular innovation or intervention. And within the global mental health portfolio of Grand Challenges Canada, we have 40 proof of concepts across 26 countries. And then we have 6 transition to scale investments. So the 46 countries that I've represented here, I would say like maybe 35 to 40% of the countries wherein Grand Challenges Canada actually works. So interestingly, so these 40 proof of concepts, out of these 40, around 55 to 60% of these innovations are actually led by the youth themselves. So those are actually represented by youth-led organizations. Not only that, the 20 seed concepts that we just initiated, 100% of them are actually focused on young people. So what we applied is, we have also applied through this our application process. So we asked all the organizations to tell us about how they would involve young people from the beginning. Not only engagement, but we also asked them how they would compensate young people, what is their strategy. So we have actually institutionalized everything from the application process onwards. And then not only that, but whenever we review these applications, so we involve young people in reviewing those applications, and we also compensate them through honorariums. So we understood this point, like, if you really want to involve young people, you should start from the beginning, from the application process and everything. Then we work with these youth-led organizations. We understood, like, these youth-led organizations are actually very new, not like very old, so they need some support. So we also provide them a non-financial assistance through our Cities Rise Accelerator platform. So what they do is they provide them the technical support in areas like monitoring and evaluation, like how do we measure impact? In the areas of fundraising, they do not know. So youth-led organizations are actually very new, so they may not know how to raise funds. Stakeholder engagement, so we provide them those assistance, organizational development funding to these organizations to ensure like these organizations can be a big organizations in future. So with this, we also launched, like what Jian mentioned about the Being Initiative. We launched Being Initiative last year, wherein our focus would be on mental health of young people. So we partner, initially what we have been doing now is like we partnered with local partners in the 13 focus countries to understand what is the emerging needs of young people around mental health. So through these partners, we tried different approaches. We said, okay, you do literature review, but you also do stakeholder consultations. So these stakeholder consultations are not only with government officials or with the policymakers, but they are with the young people. And they have taken a very, very different approach altogether. For instance, few of the partners, they have incorporated like young people directly. Some have been taking consultations from youth-led representatives. And some of them have also said, like, okay, we will float a call saying that, okay, whomsoever want to incorporate their suggestions, they can do so. So this is the different ways and different approaches that Grand Challenges Canada actually took. But Grand Challenges Canada actually believes in bold ideas with big impact. And we believe in investing people, and we believe in investing with young people. Investing in youth, this is what we believe in. And that's why for us, not only these things matter, demographics matter, diversity matter. So that's why most of the youth-led organizations that we work with, they are female-led organizations. Like female are leading those organizations. And we work with marginalized section of population. We work with LGBTQ. We work with youth with HIV, youth with disabilities. We work with youth in conflict and post-conflict settings. We work across all sections of young people, and we try to incorporate them into our policies, into our processes. So I think this is briefly how Grand Challenges Canada actually worked around. Yeah, thank you. Over to you.
Great. That's a really comprehensive overview, and what you, as an organization, find important in engaging with young people, and really also putting those ideas really strategically into place. That's very, very good to hear. And Jose, maybe you can tell us, in terms of Waves for Change, your programmatic approach, and how you engage with young people through your work.
Awesome stuff, awesome stuff. I almost said inhle now, which means in South Africa, lekker lekker, nicely. But firstly, thank you guys for having me and giving me this amazing opportunity to sit here with these guys and share a bit of what we do with our organizations and different programs. So, in a nutshell, I would first like to tell you all about Ways for Change and how we meaningfully engage youth from across Ways for Change. So, Ways for Change is a mental health surf therapy organization that engages youth from underserved communities, which is communities like where I'm from. Our approach is providing the youth with an opportunity to experience the rush of surfing, because the communities where I come from and that our organization provided service to, these young people, they are not used to sport like surfing. Because you know, in the past, surfing, we always thought it was a white man's sport. But today, we are all getting the opportunity to experience what surfing is like. And through our participants at our program, through them experiencing the rush of surfing, it gives us an opportunity to provide some of our well-being tools that allows these participants to cope with the everyday challenges that they face in their lives and in their communities. And these well-being tools that we provide them with, these tools are strength-based tools, and these tools are just tools to help them calm down, so whenever they go back to the community and they need to make difficult decisions, these tools allow them to calm down, relax the body and the mind, so that they are able to make positive life choices for themselves. And how we meaningfully engage the youth from across Ways for Change is mainly through two methods. The first method is us having multiple Ways for Change sites. For example, we have 2 sites in the Eastern Cape, 1 site in Gqeberha, 1 site in East London, and we have 3 sites in the Western Cape that is actually spread out nice. And this is just for us to ensure that the service that we provide young people with is accessible for more and more youth out there that needs our service, that needs our well-being tools. The second method that we use is through our recruiting process. So at Ways for Change, we recruit young people that are from the same communities that the participants are from, and they serve the role of coaches at Ways for Change. So what this does is, by us doing that, by us recruiting young people from the same communities, it just helps the participants and the coaches build more strong connections. And in addition, another method, I just had a light bulb moment. Another way that we meaningfully engage them is by engaging them in our decision-making process, especially when it comes to session planning or session creation, because they are from the same communities the kids are from. They have really good insight on some of the well-being tools that the youth in their communities might need. And in a nutshell, that is my response to your question. Thank you.
That sounds great. And also a really fun program, no?
Yes.
Okay, just a question from me as the chair, sorry. Do you go surfing all year round, like even now in winter, or?
Specifically in winter, because the waves are so good.
Okay, good to know, good to know. Okay, thank you, Jose. Viet, in your work, amplifying the voices of underrepresented groups from key populations and LGBTIQ+ communities in Vietnam, you have experience working with various stakeholders, such as peer educators, health services, community members, and also the Ministry of Health. How has collective action looked like in practice to drive meaningful youth engagement to really make change?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm going to highlight 2 different examples that really illustrate the fact that we could have like effective collective actions when it comes to youth engagement, particularly in the realm of global mental health advocacy. And I'm going to highlight two different examples, and one of which is going to be on like the creation, also development, and the launch of the LGBTQI plus mental health network in Vietnam. That's something that was really just like this project that was not only like led by us, but really got involved by a lot of like different parties, as you particularly mentioned, peer educators themselves, community activists, mental health service providers themselves, academics, and then also people from like Ministry of Health, so like AKA the government. And within that network, what we saw as like collective action was really like the trust that spans across all the parties. We shared this trust that it is only through youth as leaders of these networks that we could actually make an impact on LGBTQI plus youth's mental health itself. And that's the reason why that all the parties really agreed upon having two LGBTQI plus youth identified people holding two of the most important roles in this network, and that are the chairman and the secretariat. And I'm privileged to be like the chairman of this network. And just to say that being elected in such a high position and given that trust, I think it really highlights the fact that all these parties, they come from like different sectors and levels in the ecosystem. That's like the kind of trust that can be possible, and it doesn't have to be just a possibility, but it really is like a reality, where everyone really agree upon, like youth leadership for meaningful youth changes. And with this network, we particularly frame youth engagement, especially LGBTQI plus youth with lived experience, as one of our key priorities for like the next 2 years. That's written in zones. That's written in our strategic development documents. And then also we do have mechanisms and strategic plans when it comes to recruiting more LGBTQI plus youth activists from different community-based like organizations. And we do have a policy, we do have mechanisms in place for like the recruitment of more LGBTQI plus youth who are living with mental illnesses to participate meaningfully in our network, whether that be assisting in certain working groups, whether that be assisting with logistics, like administration, anything that could help with the network. So I do think that it does take, like people from different parties and levels, within the ecosystem to really carry out that trust and really foster that trust. And the second initiative that, to me really is a good example of meaningful collective actions towards youth engagement in mental health advocacy is the fact that, like Lighthouse, my organization, we launched an awareness raising campaign, and we really let like the youth themselves sail the ship. Two of the leaders, two of the lead implementers of that project were LGBTQI plus youth with lived experience of mental health themselves, and the rest of the people on that team were young people as well. So we really saw the potential in allowing and empowering young people, particularly those with lived experience, to really lead the way, because they should know what's best and how to really reach and engage those are who are their peers. And within that project, what was really interesting to me was that we can we really realized that we can actually foster this trust that I mentioned in the in the network that I just shared to you about, is that this trust is something that I saw as a common thread that we could harbor and we could really keep, was that like within this like awareness raising campaign, even though like the youth are at the forefront, even the youth are like leading the way, they're the ones who work with mental health service providers, and if you may or may not know, in healthcare there's always that power like differential between youth themselves or clients or service users with like the medical doctors, with the service providers. But in our case, like within this project, the youth had a tremendous good like relationship with like these service providers with whom they work together to develop like a national service map or like list in a way that really give like a short list of what are some of the like LGBTQI plus friendly therapy like providing sites in Vietnam. And that's something that to me, personally feels like that trust for like youth leadership, for engagement. It's something that is really powerful and could be trusted by all the parties.
Thank you. I wrote down very big trust because I think that will really shone through what you said. And also, I think that we would like to hear much more about the network. I think it's really also best practice, and that other contexts and other countries can, I'm sure, also learn from your approach there. And I think so far, what stands out to me when we speak about meaningfully engaging youth is that all you three so far have mentioned specific roles that young people have taken up, like the review as being reviewers, coaches from the communities, coaches, and Viet, you said you are the chair, and then there's the secretary position, but also a lot of other leadership positions that young people take up. So I think those are really important examples to highlight. So thank you for that. And then Aline, the Being Initiative, we have heard the name a couple of times now, and also this morning. It was launched last year. It is the second biggest youth mental health funder globally after Wellcome Trust. Why was Being started, and how are you as Fondation Botnar aiming to improve youth engagement in mental health through this initiative in the coming years?
Thank you. So first, I'm very excited to be here, and I learn so much, and thank you for the organizer to put this together, and I'm really happy to be part of this panel. So maybe who or what do we do and who we are at Fondation Botnar? We are a Swiss philanthropy foundation. Mr. Botnar and his wife have developed a big fortune selling cars, and they had a daughter, Carmela, who died in a car accident, and that's why the purpose of the foundation is to support children, and in the original deed it's for nutrition, education and health, which actually we turned to a more of a strategy in 2020, and we endorsed what I'm going to share a little bit more about the relational approach. And we work really try to in cities. We recognize that the majority of the young people are going to live in cities, and the cities need maybe to cope with, let's say, this growth, and young people are suffering on different aspects of insufficient services. So basically, we have a focus, and we try to leverage meaningfully and responsibly digital technologies. So we have actually already a portfolio of a few projects in mental health, but really going through the COVID crisis, and maybe a few numbers is that are not a surprise here in this context, is half of the mental health issue developed as of the age of 14 years. The suicide is the second cause of disease between the age of 15 and 29 years old, and only less than 2% of the investment in the national health budget is dedicated to mental health. So what from this is really going to the young people is even less. And so recognizing also that the COVID crisis even aggravated the situation, it was clear for us that within our health portfolio, we could have a role to play in supporting better mental health of young people. So that's maybe the answer of the first question. How are we going to improve youth engagement in mental health through this initiative? Through this relational collaborative approach, where we try to not to develop a top-down way of working, where we try not to define from the foundation what we give the money for. We tried to put this completely upside down, and we came up with this concept that is now was presented by my colleague from GCC, by Sahil, is that we try to allocate some first money in the first phase for these focus countries to come together to discuss across the stakeholder, from the government with the young people, to develop kind of a cartography, a landscape, and align on the priorities of the need. I remember when I was developing the concept of the first phase, they told me, but what indication do you want to tackle? I say, I don't know. It's not going to be me who is going to define the indication, but the country will come up with their priority list. So I had to withstand some pressure. But now I'm very excited because we are starting in this initiative, and really this is going to be very exciting to see, you know, how the priority is set. So Sahil has said the young people are part of the concept throughout, and of course they have already a huge experience, so that's great for us. So basically, yeah, they are part of they have a part in the council. Will have some money for innovation. So really, there is a lot of opportunities, but also we will have a strong learning accompanying this initiative.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. Yes, what I'm hearing again is the young people being involved from the beginning throughout the entire process, and also making space for them to decide what they need. And yeah, that's very important. I have, as the chair, one more question for each of you, and then we will open it up to everyone here and also everyone online. So let's start with one more round of questions. If you have any questions in the audience that were related to these first discussions, then maybe you can just write them down, and we will get to them because we have enough time. Sahil, coming back to you, can you share a little bit about the work that it's GCC, Grand Challenges, GCC, Youth Innovators are doing, and how that demonstrates youth leadership?
Yeah, sure. Within GCC, I think one of the core concept is like innovation is not only about thinking out of the box. It is also about questioning the box, like whether we really need that box or not. So this is how we work around innovations. So that is why we encourage the organizations actually to involve young people in design, delivery, and evaluation of these innovations. So there are a few examples I really want to share with you all. But before sharing that, I just like to say, like, this panel is actually representative of what GCC does, because we work with Waves for Change. Viet is our youth advisor, Eileen is our champion, and United for Global Mental Health. We work so closely with them, so they are our important partner in this pathway. So this is a great panel for GCC to actually be here. But there are other important innovations but having said that, these only innovations that I would talk about is I just listed yesterday. So one innovation is about YLabs. So they have been doing, and few the member from the YLabs is here, so you can talk more about that innovations. Yeah, he's sitting with an orange sweater. Yeah, so YLabs. So what they have done actually is very innovative. Like from the design process, they involve young people. So what they have done is they created resource materials for young people, and then they realized from the literature saying that, okay, unemployment, let us say like unemployment is an issue for young people. So let us put unemployment in the resource materials. So they put it. So once they done it, so they went to the young people and said, okay, what do you think of this? Then they realized young people is not at all about. So they said unemployment is not the immediate factor for mental health. So that is how, they conceptualized their design. They actually modified the design. They removed unemployment from all the materials, and then they focused only on certain things which young people resonate well with. So this is how they have been conceptualizing everything at the design level. But on the delivery, so they have created wellness warriors. So they have trained young people. So these wellness warriors work very closely with their peers. They work around digital platform and the self-care platform that they created so that they can support those young people who actually need some kind of help after getting some kind of consultations from that platform. So this is one part, but there are other organizations, for instance, like Green Strings Network in Kenya. So they have been doing an excellent work. They have an excellent peer-to-peer model that we are really proud of. And then we have childcare labs in Uganda. Then we have Reinserta in Mexico. So they have been doing an excellent work. So what they have been doing is they have engaged young people who are incarcerated with young people who have been reintegrated into the societies. So they have been working with these young people who are like really marginalized. And what they have been doing is a very creative thing. So they have co-created podcasts with these young people. So they have incorporated their voices. So in these kind of designing and delivering these interventions. And we have recently, we have Centum Scientific Solutions. What they have done is, so they are all new innovators, but they have done is, so they will work with young people. Mainly the delivery of services is through barbers. So barber shops. So these shops are managed by young people also. So they train them so that they can deliver services to these young people so they can hear the voices. But it is not finished yet. We also understood within GCC that we don't know much. So we also need to learn. So that is why within GCC, we invest in ourselves. We invest we go to workshops. We learn through these meetings how we can involve young people. So it is an iterative process for all of us. And the last thing I just mentioned, and I will close here for the Being Initiative, and Aline can talk more about it, is about how we have ensured, within Grand Challenges Canada, we hear the voices of young people. So we created a youth advisory group, and we also created a group called People with Lived Experience, which is managed by United for Global Mental Health. So these two groups are the one which actually represents voices of young people so that we can ask these groups so that they can give us the diverse perspectives of the people that they work with, of themselves. So this is how we have tried to incorporate some of the innovations around young people. But I would stop here. Happy to have any questions after this. Yeah, over to you, Lucy.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. I wrote down, we don't know much, which I always think is the best approach that we can have, even though you just spoke about a lot of things that you do. So I'm sure you have a lot of more knowledge to share when we get to the questions. Jose, I also have a question for you about youth leadership. How do you think local programs like Waves for Change play a role in changing how youth leadership is received in local communities?
Wow, another good question. So Waves for Change plays a very significant role in how youth leadership is received in communities. At our program, we provide both our participants and our coaches with a platform to showcase or demonstrate some of their leadership skills. At Waves for Change, we also have a very big curriculum that consists of lessons that actually help strengthen some of the strengths that our participants have in themselves, as well at the same time, these lessons help empower both our coaches and our participants into becoming as well as being seen as young leaders in their communities. Earlier on, I mentioned that we also involve our coaches in some of our decision-making processes. And through that, I would like to pinpoint that that is also a way where our coaches are also meaningfully contributing or giving back to their communities. And I also want to say that through youth involvement, it gives both coaches, or in general, it gives young adults an opportunity to show their potential as well as their capabilities to their local communities. And in closing, well, I don't think I will close, but I just want to add more. I just want to add more.
It's okay.
So I just want to add that some of what I just mentioned now, it's clearly demonstrated in communities when we look at some of the changes that take place within our participants as they come through our program. And this goes for our coaches as well. And what I mean by changes is that we see changes in their behavior, but the most important one is that I like is the changes in their decision making. And we see participants in their local communities trying to make healthier decisions regards to which group of friends they would like to belong to. And that is, in my perspective, that is a positive life choice that they can make for themselves. And you see, I'm going to add again now. Okay,
Please
just keep on going,
continue.
Jose. Keep on going. I also want to say that at Ways for Change, we focus on providing well-being tools to young adults so that they can, build some confidence within themselves so that they can make better life choices for themselves. And as a result of Ways for Change and the program or the service that we provide, it is clearly seen that it's having a really good impact in communities as well as in the lives of the participants and the coaches that are part of the Ways for Change family. And yeah, that's what I got for you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure there will be questions. I just think this is such a great program, and I think I spoke to someone earlier who works on a sports program in Nigeria, I think. I think when we look at sports and mental health and well-being, there's a lot that we can learn from each other's approaches and the impact that it has. So thank you for sharing. And yes, as a scientific researcher and young person, what role do you think young people play in research and knowledge translation components of the process of research?
Yeah. So I think, first off, I would like to pivot this question to what role can young people play, actually. And my reason for that is, like the original question may or may not assume that there exists a meaningful and equal participation for young people already in research and data translation. In fact, can I get a show of hand if we think that, currently, like within research and data translation, the people who are leading the way here really are middle-aged experts and academics? Please, show of hand. Yeah, so I think that it's like 99% of the people like in the room, and would love to see like the heart emoticons from the people online too. But I think like what we're all trying to say here is that like there's a clear picture of who's like the leader in research and data translation, and oftentimes, young people are only given the opportunity, to be involved in anything related to data or research, and that it's only through consulting on parts of data recruitment, parts of the design process. And this opportunity in itself is quite frankly still very rare. And that's despite, like all the, like the amazing things that, like Grand Challenges and other stakeholders have put into as well. And as we understand that, like such opportunities are so rare, I think the question that what role can young people play becomes more urgent and more important for us to discuss, right? And as always, I would always give this exact answer whenever I'm asked this question, and that is young people could play all the roles that exist in research and data translation process. Only and only if, there are two conditions to this. A, we meet them where they are, and B, we put an effort in empowering them to do so. Let's unpack these two conditions. So for A, if we meet them where they are, we're trying to listen, we're trying to understand what their interests are, their expertise when it comes to anything related remotely to research and data. We come to understand where we could kind of delegate their involvement or their leadership perhaps in certain projects and steps somewhere. And then we could get a better picture of what meaningful, that piece of meaningful participation can look like. The goal here is to really achieve a full coverage in all the stages, in all the steps in data translation and research. And B, as I mentioned, we should empower them and we should make an effort in doing so. Understanding that within the room when young people are going to be sitting with all of these renowned and well-experienced experts and academics, we have a duty, we have a responsibility to really sort of regulate those power differentials and really advocate for the leadership of young people when it comes to decision-making conversations like that. And as we understand that, for young people, there could be some barriers when it comes to capacity for certain parts of the research and data translation process. If we understand that, we need to make a commitment to empowering them through different capacity building programs and initiatives based on their needs, obviously, because young people could have, and when I'm saying young people, it's a huge umbrella. So if you kind of break down to different marginalized young populations as well, they all have different needs and they all have different callings when it comes to what parts they would want to play in research and data translation. So yeah.
Great. I totally agree with you, and I think it's great to mention academia because I think that relationship and collaboration with our programming and advocacy and academia, there's a big gap, and totally on board that you said young people, they can do all the roles with the two conditions. So I think, like you said, this is very urgent and we have a responsibility. So thank you for that. Aline, the final question. Let me see. We spoke about youth leadership and research, and then I would like to ask you something about the funding. And do you think that the funding landscape is changing to be more youth-informed in their approaches? And what does that look like in terms of the Being initiative?
Thank you. I think in general, positive trend, I would say, among the funders to involve more the young people. So maybe two aspects. One is, as Fondation Botnar, we went through a systematic review of where to involve young people. And it was very clear that it was much easier in a programmatic intervention. And in the research, we are not there yet. So basically, we see in our portfolio, but it's also a little bit historic, and we have put more and more an accent, and we want to engage more with young people across all the programs, and we are going to be systematic about this. So this is reinforced by also external evaluation that we did on ourselves, that they also reinforce this decision and support that. But really for the research is not quite easy, and when we were discussing between the research founders, it was striking me that they talk always about bringing them in, and I think what you said is crucial, is we need to meet them where they are. And actually, one of my past was to work as a product manager in automation regulation. And what I did actually, I came to South Africa to spend 1 week with my clients. And actually, why don't, we shift the discussion from bringing them in with all the problem that there are to bring young people out of their context and then they feel not comfortable. So I think there is a little bit of a paradigm shift that we could do as a founder. So basically, I think in general is positive, but what I also realize is, and a lot also within our foundation, a discussion of the people who want to move ahead, and the other people who feel, okay, we are fearing of being tokenistic, we are fearing of doing something wrong. So basically, it's a little bit paralyzing, and I think here there are a little bit two camps. The meaningful, we talk a lot about meaningful young people participation, so how to go about it. And I think in Being, we have a very pragmatic approach, and in general, I guess for me the solution is about learning, so maybe going slow and having different components, a strong learning component with a very intense, maybe a preparation and funded phase to have the time to discuss, to develop. Now in Being, we develop the terms of reference of what they do together with the young people, and to build this relationship at the beginning. Then we need to have the opportunity to have iteration. So this means that if we learn something, and then we need to be able to adapt. And what was said here, to enhance the capacity to support with technical support, with what kind of support that they will need. But I think we need also to reflect that, for me, the problem of the young people participation is the old people. What kind of old mental models and shift and fear of letting go and all these things. So if we want to be very true to ourselves, is what do we as old people, or the founder being in the lead, of where the funding is going to go and how, and so to what extent the old people needs also capacity building is my question. And then, of course, to install multiple feedback loops and this safe space for young people and for everybody to talk about this, because I would say for me, tremendously difficult in our foundation to even have enough of space, safe space, even to talk with our board. Maybe they will never say that they don't let go or things like this. So there are a lot of safe space to be created. And great that we start here.
Yeah.
Yes, great, thank you. And what you said, safe spaces to be created, and I also think safe spaces to openly speak about what is still difficult. And like you said, we go step by step, and sometimes also we have this fear of not doing things right or correct, but it cannot stop us from reflecting on those and then learning from each other and learning from the things that might not go so well. I think that's very important. And also what you said, sometimes for change to happen, those that currently have the power need to give up some of that power, right? So that's not only in youth engagement. So I think with that, we can open it up to the floor. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. And also, these are my lovely co-chairs of the working group that will come around. If one of you can also let me know when we have 10 minutes left, because I don't have my clock, then we can wrap up. Okay.
I can just ask, I think I'm loud enough. Okay. Thank you so much for that panel discussion. I think my question is more around sustainability. I don't think I heard that reflected too much, because we are talking about youth initiatives, and I think that always seems to be the question, right? You have such inspiring people in leadership positions, but then what happens when they leave, right? I know we talk a lot about that when we are talking about bigger organizations, but I think even for youth organizations, that's quite relevant, right? From different perspectives, from a leadership perspective, from a financing perspective. So just to hear a little bit about those who are leading youth organizations, how are you thinking about that? And those who are financing youth initiatives, are we also factoring in elements of sustainability? What happens when, this grant or seed funding that is being provided runs out? How are we making sure that, there's longevity?
Is that a question to us all?
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
I think so.
Maybe I just start. So I think this is a very good question. So every donor wants sustainable innovations, sustainable interventions, but it is not a linear pathway at all. It is not like a pathway which can easily be achieved. So a couple of things I think on sustainability. One is, of course, that around so sometimes what we do is like we try to understand what are the various levers that can ensure the sustainability of a particular intervention. And one thing comes out to be a public funding mechanism. For instance, like once the innovation is tested, maybe the government is one funder, government can take that intervention, and that is scalable. And this is one pathway that we took. The other pathway we took is integration. So what we have done is mostly these youth-led initiatives or the interventions, we try to integrate with the other mechanisms. For instance, like mental health innovation. We were talking about mental health innovation with HIV, mental health innovation within primary healthcare. So once you try to integrate this within these mechanisms, so this will flow automatically. So these a couple of things, and you like these. The point on once the person leaves, what happens? So this is the point. Like for even I think there's no direct answers, because even the government force, like one person is now we see like so it is led by one person, like most of the government. So I think it is natural that it would not happen. So that is why I think what we now doing is we do not ask these questions about scale and sustainability at the end of the innovations. We have started asking these questions just starting on the innovation, like, what do you think, how do we can scale and sustainable? So this is the ongoing learning part of our innovations. This is what I would say.
Awesome stuff. Sustainability, from everything that I mentioned now, I can only speak on the behalf of my department. I'm from the training and development department. Anything finance related. The two directors are sitting in the audience. Please speak to them after this. But sustainability regarding my department and everything training related, we have two things called a coach's pathway as well as a participant journey, I would like to call it. And in your question, you touched on a point where you asked, like, what happens if the coaches move on, or what happens, if they outgrow the organization. So with the coaches pathway, from the time when the coaches start at Ways for Change, they are provided with a lot of training to upskill themselves and to ensure that they further grow and develop into the amazing human beings they would like to be in the future. And we, by using our networks at Ways for Change, we provide them with ongoing opportunities. But now, our participants, like I said, they go through a participant journey as well. When those coaches move on and chase their dreams, guess who takes over their role? The participants. So in our organization, we have participants that have been part of Ways for Change for many years. They've started from the beginning, and they've actually worked themselves from being participants into actually becoming the coaches. And that's just a bit on the coaches pathway and the participant pathway as well. And that's what the cycle that we actually create. So we will never run out of coaches. We have a whole bunch of participants in Ways for Change, more than 1,000 participants that have the potential to becoming coaches one day. And that is actually some of the goals, and maybe some of them dream of becoming a coach at Ways for Change, because myself and my team at Ways for Change, we have been such amazing role models to our participants. So we'll never run out of coaches. Thank you.
Yeah, I think like this question is super important when it comes to really securing and sustaining youth leadership when it comes to mental health advocacy. And as I mentioned, I think when you have one young person as like the leader, that really shows like that person really has like set their foot like in the door. There's like that saying that like the first thing that happens really trickles down and create like a cascade of changes after that. But as I'm saying this, like it's not to say that like there are not going to be barriers as that one person sets their foot in the door. There are always going to be needed efforts, to keep that going and keep youth leadership as an ingrained part of like the system that we're all trying to uphold here. And my recommendation, for sustaining youth leadership is to really for all the financing stakeholders, like all the programmers themselves and other advocates, we should all uphold like a set of prerequisites when it comes to financing like mental health advocacy initiatives. It could be coming in, like a set of like different indicators, like how many percentage of the people who are in charge of like key leadership for that one project or that one network who are young people, but we kind of have to just aggregate like that term young people, because oftentimes it could be like people who are like from the 25 to like 30-year-old bracket, but oftentimes the experiences and like the leadership and like the value that comes with the leadership of those who are from like the 25 to 18 or even below, could look vastly different. So I think it all lies in the fact that we need to uphold, different indicators that could really set forth and sustain youth leadership.
Maybe one attempt through the concept of the mental health initiative to give part of the answer would be the concept that we have chosen through this stakeholder consultation and having this prioritization. So instead of coming with financing an innovation, then you want to push how to make sustainable after in the concept to, then you have to fight for who is going to take over. We reverse the idea and say, okay, let's have the consultation first and have the pull mechanism of saying, okay, this is what we want to see on the long term from various stakeholders, so maybe the chances are better that it's going to be, being uptaken in the governmental scale up. So the idea exactly of the big initiatives is to try to, to turn this around and actually have more of this pull mechanism for the solutions.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Good question. Thank you.
Yeah, really important. Can I maybe ask for a question from the chat, if we have one?
Thank you. We're getting some really positive comments about Waves for Change and the surfing programs. But I think there's also an important question here, which is around from Joshua Duncan saying, I was wondering whether considerations are being made for persons with other disabilities like physical or visual, and how do we make sure that all young people are included also?
Wow, it's just good questions coming our way. So regards to that question, I can actually share a bit of the fact that we have a neurodiverse category as well. So kids that are on the spectrum, we also provide our service to them. And maybe in the future, when it comes to other disabilities, we'll also be able to cater for those categories. I mean, I'm a surf coach on weekends, so if you need surf lessons, come to me. But I'm also an expert in the disability category where I teach people with amputated arms and legs. I actually teach them how to surf, and that is one of my contributions that I would actually want to make at Ways for Change. I want to actually ask them if it is possible, because already we providing our service to kids on the spectrum. Let's take it broader. So that's our next journey we intend to take on, hopefully. Hopefully. Thank you. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds exciting. Next question. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Zain. I'm from Uganda. I just had a question on, there is a lot of call for proposals that come out, but the challenge is this is just one call for proposal where, let's say, 150 organizations have to apply. So how do you look at traction from a youth-led organization that is probably 3 years, 5 years, compared to an organization that has been there for, let's say, 20 years and they have all this, track record? So how do you vet that so that the young organizations don't miss out or bulldozed by the big organization? Then the second question was more on, I think, Being. I follow Being. I know you guys have just launched a website recently. But in Uganda, there is, again, the problem of education and maybe other African countries. So when you're writing your idea, you might not express it the best way possible. But it's a valid idea. What interventions do you have? Also, with young people living with disability, this could be the same thing. That you give them a chance to maybe verbally come and express their idea, maybe come and, the best way possible, because expression could be a limitation. But based on the education background, context, a lot of things could affect. So how do we now bridge that gap so that nobody is left behind? Then to Ways for Change, I wanted to ask about transition and also the research bit of it. The problem with participation, meaningful youth participation, is we don't prepare for transition. Transition from participation to professionalism. How do we prepare young people to not just participate, but also be professionals in the next day? Yeah, be it in research, be it in what they do, programming, innovation, ideas, conceptualization. How do we not just ask them, hey, how can we do this for you? How do we prepare them to do it themselves professionally? So, and then the last question on the research is, a lot of research calls come, and this big organization, because they know this research wants this, they're going to go for wanted data instead of needed data. And you find that we miss out a lot on that, because maybe we want to understand how many young people are living with disabilities in Uganda. Maybe specifically that this organization is going to come up because they have the wanted data. They're going to present that instead of going back to the grassroots to find out what is the need and present that. So yeah, I just have that. Thank you.
Perfect. Maybe, yeah, I can, maybe I can start and please, my colleagues, please jump in. So 4 questions. 4 are very important. So your first question is about, so this first question is actually very important. And I think this is where Grand Challenges Canada is actually very unique. Because our requirement for any proposal is only one. And that one requirement is that we want an organization who is legally registered in the country. That's it. There's no other requirement of ours. Like, we do not want a physical statement for the last 4 or 5 years. We do not want an organization who's like $1 million organizations. No. Only one requirement. And that is why the 40 investments that we talked about, and my colleague Natasha is handling 20 out of it. So all those 20 innovations, these organizations are really young organizations. Or could be a possibility, like we met one organization yesterday. They are only organization with 3 people. So this is how we have tried to ensure those organizations should be part of it and should not be excluded, which is again a very important point. Thanks for asking this question. If I remember, your second question is more about how do we ensure their voices are heard. So I would say it depends upon context to context actually. So one of the examples that I can give you is for instance, we worked with one organization. What they did is, so whenever you go to the community to ask perspectives, you have to be very different, you have to be local. So what they did is they understood, so whenever they try to use English words, so those young people are not very responsive. But whenever they use local language words in the questionnaire, so they actually responded very well. So this is few learnings that we got, and this is how we ensured like we can hear the voices from young people, and this is how we ensure like we are bridging the gap. Having said that, I think the other part that we have done also is like about stakeholder consultations, what Aline mentioned. So we have incorporated young people's voices. We ensured that, and okay, so maybe I think this is one good example of us, like we measure youth engagement. So we measure, so this is what we have tried to do now is like, we should not say youth engagement just for the sake of saying. We have moved from meaningful youth engagement to respectful youth engagement. We have moved from just saying to measuring youth engagement. How do we measure? So all those things that we have been doing to bridge the gap. And the last two questions, one was wave for change, the other one was maybe, I just responded later, I forgot there, maybe. So your third question was for transition, I think.
Transition.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So I was actually going to start with the third question for Ways for Change, and then the second question was around the expression, right? Okay, but I think I'm going to start with the expression. So at Ways for Change, our coaches are actually taken through something like a training called Makaton training. And Makaton training, it's actually learning how neurodiverse participants actually express themselves. So our coaches, they take that learnings and that content and then we incorporate it into our curriculum and into the service that we provide. So with every session that the coaches run with the participants, those symbols, those Makaton tools, those sign language tools are used within each session that allows the neurodiverse participants to be able to share their thoughts, to share their emotions, so that we don't exclude their thoughts and emotions as well. So the neurotypical groups that we also service, earlier on I mentioned that our coaches are from the exact same communities that the participants are from. And like my new friend next to me mentioned when he was speaking now, is that when we recruit coaches from the same communities, that means the kids know the coaches. They feel that if this coach is here, that means I can also be here. And there's one thing that we must not forget. If you are from the same community that the participants are from, you automatically, you are a role model. And in our organization, in each and every program, we bring our community flavor. When we are playing games, the way we even communicate with the participants, we communicate with them in the language that they understand. It's either Xhosa, Afrikaans, English, Xhosa, and now it's even Shona. Nah? And we also we communicate with them not only through language, but through our behaviors that we display as well. And that automatically leads to them feeling and experiencing that sense of belonging, and the space being a safe space for them to express or to share their thoughts and their feelings. That's my response to the second question. Can I go to the third one? Yeah. Okay. The third question was around the transition. Do we prepare them to become coaches? So earlier on, when I was answering one of Lucy's questions, I purposefully missed out something when I mentioned the coach's pathway as well as the participant journey. I missed out something called Surf Club. So at Ways for Change, the participants, when they join, they go through our program for a year. And after that, after being part of the Ways for Change family, going through our program for that 1 year, they get the opportunity to graduate. And I don't want to dive into the technical stuff when I speak about dosage and all that, but let's just say after a year they graduate, they go to a place, still on the beach, but this program within Waves for Change, it's called Surf Club. So what happens in Surf Club, the service that we provide, we take it up a notch. We take it up a notch because now our participants are much more older, they are much more comfortable in the water, and they, because of that sense of belonging, that sense of them being part of a community, a lot of additional changes start taking place, and that's where we actually start preparing them for the outside world. So for the first year, before they graduate, the main focus is, strengthening that internal world. So the way they would respond to the external world, like in their communities, they will respond to it in a positive way. So in Surf Club, that's where the changes take place. That's where we provide them with that pathway where they can become coaches, because as soon as they reach 18, then when you're from the communities that the participants are from, finding a job it's not easy. It's very difficult. So at Waves for Change, our program actually plays a huge role in job creation for the participants that we service. So yeah, Surf Club, my other new friend, Surf Club is where the magic takes place and where we provide our participants with an opportunity as soon as they reach 18 to become a Waves for Change coach, because that is a job that they might actually really need, because jobs are so scarce in South Africa and in their communities. Inhle.
Good.
Great. Do you want to add anything, or should we ask for another question?
There are this moment where you want to keep quiet.
Yeah, but I think we should give give the floor to more questions, for sure.
So, good afternoon, everyone. My question is to Aline, who actually had a lot of insights. First, it's to thank you for the self-awareness and for the knowledge that usually the older people maybe need to get out or give space. But again, the older people are the creators of the safe space. Only that they created a safe space where the young people would come together and talk about and express themselves. So the space has been created. Is the space bold? I don't know, maybe the young people can answer. Is the space transformative? Maybe again, the young people can answer. But my question to you is, how do we then do what you called capacity building for the older people, so that the gatekeeping stops, so that the support the young people need to drive this forward, they receive, and so that it's also not a zero-sum game. It's not a competition between the older generation, the younger generation, and when you speak, somebody tries to figure out, are you a millennial, are you a Gen Z, are you a Gen X, where do you fall? So for me, it's thank you for the awareness, and how do we create that bold, transformative space, now not for the young people, because the young people have taken the space, the safe space, they've made it bold and transformative. How do we make it even so for the decision holders who are the older generation?
Thank you. Yes, so this is a question that we ask ourselves internally. And maybe in the same way as, and this is what we really also try to do, is in the same way as the peer-to-peer among young people help, to create this safe space. I think, for example, we try now to talk more from one founder to the other and try to look at what they do different, or the one who are more advanced, and then you can, from peer to peer. I think maybe one channel, one way is really to have also these peer-to-peer discussions. And yeah, we try to, we are actually, there are some organizations like Philia, where Foundation Exchange, in different topics. We also now are going to go through a peer exchange from our board with other foundations who have other practice. And so I think this is maybe one possible channel. It's not the only one, and I have not found yet exactly the answer, but yes, I think it's having this moment where you feel, okay, with myself, what is my problem? Where do I have a problem with young people participation, and be in front of your mirror and thinking, okay, have this reflection, this moment, and say, okay, this is where it, I feel uncomfortable. It's in my uncomfort zone. It's the first step. So, yeah, I guess again also talking and being collaborative among the peers could be a start.
Yeah, when you're saying this about uncomfortableness, I hear, I forgot his name, but from this morning, like we just have to push and push and, that's what we do, and we have to just sometimes be uncomfortable or make others uncomfortable. We have time for one more question and then we'll round up. Oh, we have a good question from the chat. Let's go.
Hi, thank you. We have Jono Mackay from Same, who said, how can we better prepare youth to take more advantage of these kinds of opportunities to shape and lead programs and protect them from harm or unnecessary stress? Asking a young person struggling with mental health challenges to engage in what can be very stressful work is not without its risks. Keen to hear any practical tips for ways we can safeguard youth whilst also respecting their agency.
It's a very good question. I think all of us can give our thoughts, and then we just keep it a bit short so we have some time to close. But I think it's good for all of us to give some input. So who wants to start?
Okay.
I
We're
think,
just looking.
please, please, if you
So
want
it
to.
starts like it becomes a sequence. Okay. So I would say like this is one of the most difficult questions. Practical tips. I would just say, like, for instance, there are certain principles that we follow to ensure, like, whenever we engage with them, we adopt principles of equity. We adopt principles of ensuring, like, they're not being judged, non-judgmental attitudes. They are not being so they are given free space so they can talk about it. And that's why what we have also done with the people with lived experience, and United can talk more about it. It's like, so we have given them space so that they all come together and discuss their issues and be comfortable with it. We just want them to be comfortable. And as an organization, we have been trying, we have been learning, so I can only say about this, but this is an important question, and we keep on asking this to ourselves, like, how do we ensure those safeguarding principles that we have adopted in our organization are being implemented to these organizations. And we keep on track with the organization, youth-led organizations. But this is the important question. Maybe these are the two young people who have been sitting, like, they are the best to answer, not me. Yeah, maybe. Sorry to put on.
Awesome. From my side, I would just, like, very short, I would say we should establish more community-based programs where we provide the youth with a platform where they can be themselves, as well as a platform where they get more opportunities. Secondly, let's take more advantage of the rich people, because they make it all happen with funding and all that. But let's use our networks so that we can approach the proper people in those positions that won't think twice to join our journey. And thirdly, you are saying we the youth, So for us, let's model certain behaviors because I believe what participants see in us, they find in them. I don't want to say monkey see, monkey do, but actually that is what happens. If we carry out positive and healthy behaviors and display healthy behaviors in the external world, young people can actually learn from us and actually want to be like us in the future. That's me, buddy. It's your turn.
Yeah, totally for sure. I think this question is like super important, and some of the suggestions, like if I will, for this is that let's foster both a safe and a brave space. So a safe space goes a long way, especially when you're empowering, youth, like youth leaders with lived mental health experience, because like that sort of space really provides comfort and just like a space where they could really like take care of their own mental health as well. And in order for us to like cultivate and sustain a safe space, I think we all have to make a decision to account for that in financing. And it's just not all about like the hours that we pay for them in terms of the work anymore, but what about the space that we could create, or some kind of benefits that we could foster and give to them, to account for the level of stress that like the level of work or commitment that we have asked them to do could potentially cause. So I think that's something that we all have to make a decision, that sometimes like that financing that we're making and like a decision on must account for the safe space. And in terms of a brave space, I think all of the youth leaders that are already there, in like leaders like positions, need to really foster like a brave space to other emerging youth leaders, in the sense that like that is what it takes. Sometimes it's going to be something that's really out of your comfort zone, and it can potentially cause some initial stress, but that doesn't mean that you can't cope with it, or that we as a community cannot be a resource for you to kind of like fall on whenever you're facing stress. And as you're demonstrating that like a space could be brave, that's further like empowering other emerging youth leaders to really like step up and grow some more skills when they're heading to more like complex like dialogues, and they're like dealing with other leaders and politicians at a higher level.
I guess, creating these opportunities for this moment where the young people can express themselves, and where we, the side of the older people, we can really see all what they bring, see their strengths, and then that create this trust moment where I think things flow between the generations. So I think that would be, and making this visible through good communication, and then we create many role models.
Yeah. Okay, and then I'm also going to add something, another small piece of promotion. With the Child and Youth Working Group, we have been working on a resource for meaningful lived experience youth participation. Maybe some of you have seen the draft already. So tomorrow, when we have the other panel at 11:30, tomorrow, these discussions will continue, and there will be more space to speak about this, because those, especially that kind of protection and participation. And then I also wrote professionalism, so I have like the 3 Ps that I think are important to take forward in the conversations. I think we have maybe 2 minutes left. If you allow me, then I would like to give one final word to all our lovely panelists, to just leave us with a short, quick message that you feel that is a takeaway, or that we should remember, or when we are going on our coffee break, that we can discuss with someone that we run into, something that you think is important for us and the audience to take away from here. Let's go in the usual order.
You must, so it's a good point actually. So quickly I can only say, I think the one thing works for me is like learning. I think learning by doing is like, let us engage young people and let us learn more about how do we do it actually. That's my motto. Like.
Awesome. I would say mine is Simunye Sisonke, Sisonke Simunye, which means togetherness. We can make that change.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. I think my really key takeaway here really is, oftentimes the question really is not, how do we trust that young people have what it takes to be leaders, but it's more, what does it take for us to trust that they do? So again, trust youth leadership.
Cool. And mine would be, let's be curious and courageous.
Yeah.
Wow, all these mottos. I love it. So I'm going to close. Do I also have to give a motto? Oh, I didn't think of this, because now I've put everyone on the spot, and then now I'm here. I already have my 3 Ps. Yeah, that is me now. Protection, don't be afraid to make mistakes, and don't let the fear of, like Viet said, you know, like, oh, can we trust that this young person can do it? Turn it around and look at participation, but then take it one step further, because we keep speaking about youth engagement and participation, but we have to not look at we have to take participation to professionalism, the final P, and, you know, take young people serious professionally, I think. So that's it for me. Thank you so much to all the panel members and to you. Thank you for being here with us, and enjoy the rest of the meeting.